Marcia Bell sat motionless at the edge of her grand mahogany desk, the silk wrap around her waist glowing faintly under the filtered morning light. Her blouse was crisp, perfectly buttoned, her earrings in place. She looked like a woman ready to attend an important meeting, but her calendar was blank. Her phone hadn't buzzed in hours, she hadn't even blinked. She just sat there, one hand cradling her chin, the other limp at her side, as if her soul had quietly slipped away without asking permission. At 69, Marcia had everything. 3 thriving wholesale warehouses, 6 high-end boutiques stocked with imported fabrics and bridal lace, a sprawling marble mansion in a gated estate that made onlookers slow down to stare. Her name was synonymous with power in Atlanta's textile world. Her voice had been broadcast on local networks. Her wealth supported not just her family but many she didn't even know. Yet no wealth could shield her from the slow-burning ache in her chest, the shame that after everything she had built, her own children had become her greatest heartbreak. She closed her eyes and felt the pain rise like acid from her stomach to her throat. Memory rolled in like thunder. She remembered how her husband had passed barely 2 weeks after they'd buried him, and how his side of the family wasted no time, throwing her and the children out of the family home. No tears, no mercy, just cold backs and closed doors. She'd walked into the rain that day, her toddler son on her hip, her infant daughter strapped to her back. All she carried was a worn-out duffel bag and a prayer. She remembered sleeping on the cracked linoleum floor of a neighbor's basement, frying a cara at street corners with one hand while bouncing her baby with the other, crying silently in packed MARTA buses while balancing rolls of fabric on her head, drinking powdered milk with stale bread just so her children could eat something hot. She remembered missing rent, skipping birthdays, borrowing to pay private school fees. She remembered fasting for 21 days just to raise funds for her first bulk order. She started with a single vendor table in a flea market. From there she clawed her way up, order by order, container by container, until she owned half the import rights on Pan-African textiles in the state. She didn't just build a mansion, she designed it. She selected every tile, every chandelier. She paid in cash, block by block. Her story was one of fire and faith, and now she sat in that same mansion, surrounded by 2 grown children who couldn't lift a single finger to help her sweep the hallway. Her son, Keon, had once been her pride. She enrolled him in elite schools, paid tuition in US dollars, even flew him to London and Dubai every summer. When he graduated, she rented a banquet hall and cooked 6 catering trays of jollof and agusi, dancing like she had just won $1 million lottery. He returned home full of charm and said, "Mom, I don't want to work for anybody. I want to be an entrepreneur like you." She smiled. She believed him. But she didn't know then that this boy she raised would become the very storm she'd spend her final years trying to survive. Keon told Marcia he wanted to start a tire importation business. He asked for 3.5 million naira. She gave him 5. No questions, no delays. She wanted to believe in him the way nobody had believed in her. 3 months later, the business vanished without explanation. No profit, no reports, no updates. Just silence. Before she could ask where the money went, he returned with a new proposal. "Mom, crypto is the future. Just give me 5 million. By December, it'll triple." She gave it to him again. The money disappeared faster than the tires. Next came perfume sales, then gym equipment imports, then a laundry app that never even made it past the prototype stage. Each new venture was louder, more ridiculous than the last. Every time he wore crisp clothes, branded sneakers, and fake confidence. And every time, he failed. When she asked what happened, he simply said, "It's not failure, Mom. It's experience." Experience that was swallowing her retirement. Savings like suya on a hot plate. Her daughter, Nia, was no better. After graduating from college, she came home and announced with glittering confidence, "Mommy, I've found my calling. I want to be a lifestyle influencer." Marcia didn't fully understand what that meant, but she loved her daughter. So, she gave her the best ring light, a DSLR camera, a backdrop, and even converted the guest room into a studio. She told the staff to help decorate. She hoped maybe Nia would find her voice. 6 months in, Nia dropped the ring light like it was cursed. "It's too hard," she sighed. "No one's even liking my posts." The next week, she announced a new plan. She wanted to start an online boutique selling bags and shoes. Marcia gave her 1.5 million naira. She didn't hesitate. She still believed maybe this time. 1 month into the business, every bag and pair of shoes meant for sale had already been styled and worn by Nia for her own photo shoots. When Marcia confronted her, Nia tossed her braids and replied casually, "But I had to model them now. How else will customers know they're cute?" Marcia nearly grabbed one of those same handbags and used it to model her daughter's forehead. Then came the final straw. Keon got a girl pregnant. When Marcia confronted him, he shrugged. "I'm not ready for marriage yet, Mom. I'm still figuring out my life." "You're not ready?" she asked, her voice sharp and still. "But your sperm was ready. You planted cassava, and now the harvest is here. But you want to run?" Without waiting for an answer, she took him to the girl's house and arranged a quiet family introduction. She was old-fashioned like that, handle it with dignity. She allowed the girl to move into the mansion, hoping she would at least try to behave like a guest. But from the moment that girl stepped through the door, Marcia's peaceful life went up in flames. The girl, Jasmine, was loud from the start. She left dirty dishes in the sink for hours. She blasted music while walking around in booty shorts and crop tops, snapping gum like she was the one paying rent. She claimed the couch in the living room like it was her throne, legs up, arms spread, scrolling endlessly on her phone. One afternoon, while Marcia was sweeping near the hallway, Jasmine didn't even flinch. She just turned and said, "Mommy, Marcia, can we get new furniture? This couch gives old lady vibes." Marcia nearly fainted from rage, but the hits kept coming. Naya returned home one Saturday afternoon with her baby tucked in a pastel duffel bag. Her eyes were puffy, her voice high-pitched with fake confidence. "Mommy, I've left my husband. He was treating me like some maid. Me? A whole Naya?" Marcia stared at her, then at the child, then at the silence that followed. She said nothing. She didn't even have the strength. And just like that, her once peaceful mansion became a madhouse. 2 adult children, a daughter-in-law who acted like Queen Bee, 3 screaming grandkids, and only one person buying groceries, paying utility bills, handling emergencies. The same woman who built that house from nothing. Every night, Marcia would lie on her back and listen. Laughter floated down the hallways. TikTok dances echoed through the walls. Lively group chats played through speakers. Meanwhile, her bank account shrank like dry pap in cold water. One night, seated alone at her desk, she lowered her head into her hand and whispered, "I built this life with blood, and now I'm being drained by the very ones I bled for." She reached into the drawer, her hands trembling, and pulled out an old business card. Barrister Miles Adu, estate and property consultant. She picked up her phone and dialed. "Barrister, it's Marcia Bell. I want to do something drastic." His voice was cautious. "Are you sure, madam?" She inhaled sharply. "I want to test my children." She paused, letting the silence sit heavy in the air. "If they fail, then I'll deal with them the way life never did." It started one quiet evening, like the opening scene of a well-rehearsed play. Marcia Bell slammed the front door so hard, the chandelier quivered. Her headscarf was crooked, her wrap undone, her designer purse hit the tiled floor with a thud. She didn't let anyone speak. She burst into tears mid-step. "I'm finished. I'm ruined. Everything is gone." Chaos erupted. Keon came running down the stairs, shirtless, PS5 controller still in hand. Nia stumbled out of her room, one false eyelash clinging to her cheek. Jasmine paused her YouTube cooking tutorial and shuffled into the living room, oil on her fingers and an annoyed look on her face. "Mommy, what's going on?" "Mommy, talk to us." Marcia collapsed onto the couch like she'd been shot in the chest. Her voice cracked through sobs. "They've destroyed me, my sweat, my life's work. Everything I built, it's all gone." Naya dropped to her knees. "What? Who did this? Mommy, talk to us." Marcia wiped her face with the edge of her wrap. There was a fire. It started in the Ashodi branch. Nobody knows how, but by the time we got there, the shops were gone. Looters emptied my warehouses. The container I just paid for? Burnt. They gasped in unison. My entire savings was in that shipment. Everything's gone. The only thing I have left is this house and my car. That's it. The bank account is dry. Silence dropped like a hammer. Even the house help peeking from behind the hallway vanished. After a moment, Keon cleared his throat. So, what are we going to do now? Marcia turned her face toward him slowly. We? Keon, are you not a man? Are you not my firstborn? What do you mean, we? He blinked like he didn't understand English. I'm telling you the empire is gone and you're standing there asking me for next steps? Then Nia jumped in, lips trembling. But, Mommy, my birthday is next week. Marcia turned to her, face blank. You said? Nia shrank back. Nothing. Keon shuffled awkwardly. About my son's birthday. We already printed the banners. Marcia stood up. You're both talking about parties and birthdays while I'm telling you my entire business empire just turned to ash? That's how I know I failed as a mother. She didn't wait for a reply. She picked up her bag and dragged herself up the stairs. Not one child followed. The next morning, she didn't come down for breakfast. By noon, the driver announced he'd been let go. By sundown, the housemaids were packing their bags. Marcia had told them plainly she could no longer pay salaries. And just like that, the mansion that once ran like a luxury hotel turned into an eerie graveyard of selfish silence. By day 2, Marcia hadn't said a word to anyone. She didn't cook. She didn't step outside. She just stayed in her room, lying on the bed she had once picked out from a luxury catalog, staring at the ceiling like it held the answers to her pain. That afternoon, Naya knocked gently and peeked in. Mommy, you're not going to the market today? Without turning her head, Marcia replied, There is no market to go to. It's gone. Everything is gone. And that's when the shift happened. The buffet? Closed. The generator? Off more than on. The fridge? Nearly empty. Laughter turned to complaints. Fun turned to frustration. They had no one left to depend on, and suddenly they realized it. Nia stopped wearing wigs. She started carrying her baby around like a prop, sighing dramatically every time she scrolled through Instagram, waiting for a giveaway announcement. Keon stayed in the backyard most of the time, only coming inside to charge his phone or complain about the heat. And Marcia? The woman who had once run an empire still woke up before everyone else. She swept the compound, washed the dishes, mopped the living room floor alone. One morning, while she was sweeping under the couch, Keon, sitting there with his legs up, didn't even move. He just lifted them lazily so she could sweep under them, eyes still glued to his phone screen. Jasmine sat on the armrest nearby, sipping tea and scrolling TikTok, while the kids ran across the hallway with muddy feet, leaving prints on the clean floor Marcia had just wiped. Then came the insult that nearly broke her silence. Nia stepped out of her room, stood in front of the full-length mirror next to the dining table, and said without a hint of irony, Mommy, can you shift a bit? I need the mirror. Marcia moved aside slowly, broom still in hand, not a word escaping her lips. But inside, her soul wept. Later that week, Jasmine decided to help out. She went to the market and made a big pot of spicy jollof rice. The aroma filled every corner of the house. Everyone assumed maybe finally she was stepping up. Then she served only Keon, herself, and their children. Not a single spoonful for the woman who had built the kitchen they were eating in. She cleaned the pot, washed the plates, and marched back to her room like she'd just fed a homeless shelter. Marcia sat at the empty dining table that night, drinking pap and chewing on dry ground nuts. Her eyes watered, not just from the pepper. The next day was worse. Nia came home with one giant takeout plate, closed the door behind her, and shared it quietly with her son. When Marcia knocked gently and asked if she could have a taste, Nia replied without guilt, Mommy, it was just small. I didn't even eat well myself. That night, Marcia took her blood pressure medication with nothing but a glass of warm water and a banana. No protein, no fruit, no comfort, just betrayal. Her grandchildren no longer greeted her properly. The staff were long gone. The fridge held only shadows. But she didn't shout. She didn't scream. She was watching, and what she saw confirmed everything. They didn't just stop helping her, they had never really seen her to begin with. Days passed, then weeks. Marcia's energy dwindled, her joints ached, but still, no one helped. Then one morning she woke up feverish. Her body was hot, her throat dry, her head pounding like drums in a church revival. She called out weakly, "Keon, please take me to the clinic." Keon, eyes barely lifting from his game controller, said, "Mommy, money is tight right now. Maybe just rest and take some paracetamol." She nodded slowly and watched him disappear back into his room. That afternoon, she dressed herself, slipped on cracked sandals, and walked slowly down the block. She leaned on walls for support until she reached a pharmacy outside the estate. The same woman who once donated 2 generators to a community health center was now begging a stranger for malaria drugs on credit. She went home that night, took her medicine with trembling hands, and lay on the bed alone, whispering, "God, they failed. My own children failed me." She got slightly better within a few days, enough to sweep the house without collapsing. But instead of concern, she began receiving instructions. "Mommy, I don't like how the floor smells," Nia said one morning, sipping a smoothie. "Can you mop it again? And this time, use Dettol." Marcia stared at her blankly. It didn't stop there. Jasmine strolled past her in the kitchen, glanced at the plates in the sink, and rolled her eyes. "You left dishes in the sink all morning. Are we pigs now?" Her voice echoed loud enough to wake the baby. Marcia turned slowly from the pot of rice she was stirring. "Excuse me? Who are you talking to?" "Oh, please." Jasmine waved a manicured hand. "If you want to live here, at least be useful. Or are you expecting me to cook for you too? I'm not your housemaid, Ma." Marcia was shaking. Not from fear, from fury. She turned to her son. "Keon, you heard what your wife just said to me?" Keon didn't look up from the screen. "Mama, I beg, leave it. Jasmine's been stressed lately." Marcia blinked. "I am your mother." "Yes," Keon replied casually. "But you can't expect everyone to keep cleaning and cooking for you all the time. You said you don't have money anymore, right? So everyone has to pitch in." Marcia stood still in the kitchen, surrounded by the tiles she imported from Italy. Under the chandelier she chose herself, near the cabinets she had once had hand-painted in coral gold. Now they were telling her to pitch in. But she stayed quiet. Until that Thursday afternoon, Nia barged into the living room, crop top hugging her midsection, scarf slanted on her head like a confused turban. "Mommy, shift," she said bluntly. "I need that mirror. I've got a TikTok video to film." Marcia looked up from where she was folding old wrappers on the couch. "A video? TikTok, Mommy. You won't understand." Marcia said nothing. Then Nia added under her breath, "Some mothers are enjoying soft life. Me, I'm out here sharing a mirror with an old woman, turning our house into face me, I face you." That was it. Marcia stood up, her wrapper falling to the floor. "Everybody come out. Now." Keon stumbled out first, annoyed. Jasmine followed, holding her phone like it was more important than anyone's life. "What now, Mommy?" Keon groaned. Marcia pointed at each of them. "I am still your mother. This house, this roof you walk under like you own it, I built it. With my sweat, with my blood." Nia rolled her eyes. Jasmine smirked. Keon chuckled and said, "You mean the house that's in my name?" Marcia froze. Keon looked her dead in the eyes. "Yeah, we know. You thought you were being slick, but we saw the paperwork. This house is legally under Tozen Bell. Me." Marcia's lips trembled. "You think I planned all this just to control you?" Jasmine stepped forward. We've talked about it as a family. You should move out. You need rest. Maybe stay at an old folks' home or something. We need peace. Marcia just stood there, mouth open, air leaving her lungs like a balloon deflating in slow motion. Then Nia walked out and returned with an old faded suitcase. She entered her mother's room and began packing clothes like a mad woman at a discount sale. Mommy, we're just helping you. Isn't that what you said you wanted? Peace? Keon followed next, dragged the bag to the front door, and said without emotion, Please leave with your dignity. Don't make this worse than it already is. Jasmine held the door open. Let breeze touch your body, Ma. Fresh air is good for elderly people. Marcia didn't say a word. She simply bent down, picked up her wrapper, and walked out of the house she built from dust. The gate closed behind her with a loud final click. Minutes after the gate slammed behind her, Marcia Bell stood alone on the sidewalk in front of the house she had poured her life into. Her wrapper slipped slightly from her shoulder, but she didn't fix it. She didn't even wipe the tears sliding down her face. She flagged down a taxi, gave them the name of a hotel she once donated to during a charity gala, and checked into a 5-star suite. She walked past marble floors, nodded politely at the concierge, and entered a room that smelled of eucalyptus and silence. There she ordered jollof rice with goat meat, lay on a bed that didn't squeak beneath the weight of betrayal, and wept for 2 straight hours. It had been 1 full week since Marcia Bell, once the queen of Atlanta's fabric empire, was thrown out of her own mansion like a squatter. 1 week since Nia, her only daughter, folded her clothes into a faded travel bag like she was cleaning out a storage locker. 1 week since Keon, her firstborn, dragged that bag across her marble floor and tossed it outside like garbage, and not a single call, no message, no, Mommy, are you okay? Not even a fake, we're sorry. Instead, what she got was a bill from the estate manager requesting her to pay the next quarter's service charge, and a text from her longtime friend, Ms. Boonme, saying, Your kids are now telling people they own the Banana Island house. Marcia laughed. But it wasn't joy. It was pain wrapped in a hollow chuckle. That night she wiped her swollen eyes, picked up her phone, and dialed the only number that mattered now. Barrister Miles, good evening. His voice came through smooth and cautious. Good evening, Madam Bell. I want you at my hotel room by 10 tomorrow morning. Bring all the documents. I'm rewriting my will. There was a pause. Are you sure, Ma? You sound hurt. I'm not hurt, she said, her voice calm, steel behind every syllable. I'm finally ready. At 10 a.m. sharp, Barrister Miles arrived at the hotel. Marcia was seated near the tall glass window, dressed in a soft silk robe the color of the sky before rain. Her makeup was fresh, but the pain under her eyes couldn't be hidden with powder. She didn't offer him tea. She didn't ask him to sit. Write this down, she said. The pen in his hand paused mid-air. From today onward, Keon Bell is no longer my next of kin. His eyes widened. Remove Nia too. In fact, remove all of them. I gave birth. I breastfed. I clothed. I trained. And they repaid me by throwing me out like used tissue. She stood and walked slowly toward the table where her name once signed. $1 million supply deals. My new next of kin will be the foundation I've been planning for years. The Marcia Bell Women of Strength Initiative. Every shop, every warehouse, every property, too, will go to it. Barrister Miles blinked slowly, shocked. Are you absolutely sure you want to disinherit your children? Marcia gave a small smile, but it didn't touch her eyes. The market women I once helped with rent treated me better than my own blood. Let my sweat serve people who will never call me a liability. She picked up the pen and signed. Her hand didn't shake once. 1 week later, the Banana Island estate security guards had never seen anything like it. At precisely 9 a.m. on a Wednesday, 2 black SUVs rolled up the quiet lane like a presidential convoy. Inside the lead vehicle sat Marcia Bell, dressed in a wine-red lace gown with a gold head wrap stacked high like a crown. Her earrings sparkled with the same quiet fire in her eyes. Inside the second SUV were Barrister Miles, clutching a leather briefcase, and 2 police officers holding an official court order. Keon stepped out of the house, still in boxers and slippers, toothbrush hanging from his mouth. His jaw dropped. Nia peeked from the balcony, wearing a cheap wig cap and a house wrapper, eyes still glued to her TikTok feed. Then the cars stopped. Doors opened. Marcia stepped out like royalty. Back straight, face set, not a word escaping her lips. Barrister Miles approached the gate first, holding the envelope high. "This is an official court order," he said. "You are hereby served a 7-day eviction notice. This property, according to legal documentation, has been reclaimed by the rightful owner, Madame Marcia Bell." Keon dropped the toothbrush. Nia screamed, "Mommy, Mommy, please, we didn't mean it." Marcia didn't flinch. She simply raised one hand. "Keep your sorry." Then she turned to Keon. "You said I should just die, right? That you were waiting for me to vanish so you could inherit what I built with my 2 hands." She opened her handbag and pulled out 2 thick white envelopes. "Here, 20 million naira for each of you. That's all. Go build your own empire." Keon fell to his knees. Nia followed, sobbing loudly. "Mommy, please, just listen." Marcia didn't blink. "I gave birth to you, but I will not be buried by you." She turned to the officers. "Escort them out." And just like that, Keon, Jasmine, their kids, and Nia stood outside the gate they once strutted through like they owned it. Heads bowed, faces wet, hands trembling. Marcia turned, stepped back into her mansion, and closed the door gently. The marble floors welcomed her back. The air smelled faintly of lavender and betrayal. She stood still, looking around her palace. She turned the key in the lock, stared at the closed door, and said quietly to no one in particular, "You wanted me gone, now live without me." 2 weeks after Marcia Bell reclaimed her mansion, the city of Atlanta had already heard the whispers. Keon and Nia, once known as the heirs to a fabric empire, had been kicked out like squatters. They left the estate with fake pride, clutching the 20 million naira each that their mother had thrown at them like coins at a street dancer. But pride couldn't pay rent, and that money wouldn't last forever, especially in the wrong hands. Keon moved his family into a cramped 2-bedroom borrowed from a former classmate, an old crypto buddy who owed him a favor. Jasmine hated every second. There was no AC, no marble floors, and no staff to clean after her kids. The baby wailed through the night. Jasmine wailed louder. Nia, on the other hand, managed to squeeze into her old college friend's apartment. The friend gave her side eyes every time she opened the fridge or ran the hot water for too long. But Nia kept pretending she was fine, still posting soft life quotes on Instagram from inside borrowed sheets. They both vowed to prove their mother wrong. Keon launched T-Connect Tires, using part of his cash to import tires from Dubai. But he ordered the wrong sizes. His shipment got stuck at the port, and when he tried to bribe a customs officer, he got scammed. Again. Nia revived her influencer dream under a new name, Nia Lux, with cheap bags and drop-shipped outfits. But she spent more time posing than packing. Orders got delayed. Products arrived damaged. Customers dragged her on TikTok and Twitter, calling her a fraud. By the 2nd month, they were both broke. Keon's office turned into a prayer room. Jasmine threatened to leave every other day. Their kids cried from hunger. Nia started borrowing money from old flings, sending voice notes that began with, "Hey, stranger," and ended with, "Can you help me out real quick?" One morning, Nia woke up with swollen eyes and texted Keon, "Maybe we should go back. Maybe we should beg." And that's exactly what they did. They returned to Banana Island on a hot Saturday morning, standing at the gate like street kids. "Please tell Mommy we're here," Nia said, voice trembling. The gate man didn't even blink. He walked inside and came back a minute later with a blank expression. "Madam say make I throw Una out." They tried again the next day. No response. They sent long texts. No reply. They called. Line switched off. So they tried a new strategy. They brought their church pastor, then their old Sunday school teacher, then Marcia's distant cousin from the village. All of them took turns knocking on her door, wearing pity like perfume. Even the estate chairman's wife came, sipping malt on the living room couch as she pleaded, "Madam Marcia, forgive them. Blood is blood. It took 3 months. 3 whole months of humiliation and doorsteps before Marcia said the words, 'Let them in.'" Keon and Nia entered the mansion slowly, like strangers in a museum they once lived in. Their backs were hunched with shame, their clothes dull, their faces thinned by suffering. They fell to their knees in the center of the living room where they once laughed, once mocked, once ruled. Nia wept into her palms. Keon wiped his eyes with his shirt sleeve. "Mommy," he whispered, "we have suffered. We've learned," Nia added through sobs. "Please, forgive us." Marcia Bell stood across the room in a flowing navy blue caftan, her hair wrapped, her eyes unreadable. For a long time she said nothing. Then finally she asked, "Have you truly learned what it means to suffer? To work with your own hands? To be humbled?" They both nodded like scared children. "Good," she replied, "because my forgiveness is free." They exhaled. "But my inheritance is gone." Their heads snapped up. "I've given everything to the Marcia Bell Women of Strength Initiative. My shops are now run by women's shelters. My warehouses fund orphan schools. This house, this mansion, is now under the foundation's name." Nia gasped. "Mommy, no." Keon tried to speak, but she raised a single hand. "I've forgiven you because God commands it, but I will not reward betrayal with blessing. You threw me out, so now strangers, women who've never had mothers, will enjoy what I built." Keon's shoulders sank. Nia's mouth trembled. "But how will we live?" she cried. "Where do we even start?" Marcia looked them both in the eyes. "You start where I started, with nothing but your hands and your will." She stepped back toward the window and glanced out at the estate she once ruled, and now ruled again, on her terms. "I want you to become people your own children can be proud of, not parasites." And then, after a long pause, she said quietly, "Wait here." She left the room and returned a moment later with 2 sealed envelopes. "Inside each is 20 million naira," she said. "The same money you rejected when you thought you'd won." They hesitated. "This time use it to build, not to play. Grow it. Earn your name back. Not from my wealth, but from your own." Their hands trembled as they accepted the envelopes. They wept again, but this time there was no noise, no pride, only silence. A silence full of repentance and realization. In the evenings, Marcia now sat quietly on her balcony, sipping chilled zobo in the breeze. She watched the sun dip below the gate she once walked out of and smiled. "Let them grow," she whispered. "Let them become someone." And for the first time in a long time, her chest didn't feel heavy. It felt free.